Now, we've probably all seen the memes of the older person saying to their son or saying to someone that they know that's younger, oh, when I was your age, I used to do this. Or let's say you bench press 300 pounds, and we've probably heard of the meme that goes, oh, well, when I was your age, I used to bench press 405. And we all laugh at those kinds of things and we go, oh man, the older generation, they're just so insistent on finding ways to outclass us and to be better than us. But in some ways, I think the older generations, if you're a millennial, if you're a Gen Zer, we're talking maybe older millennials or Generation X or baby boomers or the Great Generation or whoever, just people who are older than us. And we miss the point and we're quick to dismiss that they and their generation had some traits that made them stronger than us today. We don't want to admit that, right? Especially us millennials and Gen Zers. We like to think that as time goes on, everything gets better. Not just technology, not just being more efficient, but everything gets better. And that's just simply not true. And if you talk with enough people who are older with an open mind, that's my challenge for you. Maybe you've talked with them, but it's just your dad or it's just your grandpa or whoever. But no, seriously, if you talk with enough people who especially are baby boomers, Gen X, baby boomers or older, you'll find a common denominator that a lot of those people had work ethics and drives that were pretty crazy. And not only that, because we all know that, but their ability to overcome obstacles, I hate to say it, was most certainly better than millennials and Gen Zers today. As a blanket statement. Now, are there millennials and Gen Zers today that can overcome obstacles more effectively and not get as riled up as baby boomers? Of course, there's exceptions to every rule, but as a blanket statement, I think it's hard to refute that those from generations past who are older now, senior citizens or, really getting up there, those people, by and large, as a group of people, were better at dealing with obstacles than us nowadays, being a millennial or being a Gen Zer. Now, why is that? There's a whole lot of explanations we could dive into. We could dive into the fact that those baby boomer parents, Gen X parents, maybe even older millennial parents, that they pampered us a lot. Because once they made it, once they brought up their social status or they elevated themselves to a new height, they wanted to spoil their children. They wanted to spoil the next generation, us, right? And so it's so easy to blame it on them, to be like, it's their fault. That's one thing that millennials and Gen Zers are pretty terrible at, is accepting responsibility, isn't it? Yeah, it definitely is. I can answer that as someone who's in that age demographic. Now, that leads me to my next point. Not accepting responsibility and finding others to blame for really something that is our fault as a group is a scapegoat, and that does not help us to overcome and become better at dealing with setbacks and moving forward, because that is something that we really need to learn from the older generations, because a lot of them do not have or were not brought up the way that we were. They didn't have the same fortunate circumstances growing up that we have or had growing up. And there's something about that when you don't have a lot growing up, really, you don't think that there's much to lose. You view progress as going this way. Because if you especially start at the bottom, you're not going to go down, right? You're only going to go up from there. And that empowered a lot of people from that generation to put in a tremendous amount of work. And sure, they worked hard, but they faced obstacles along the way. Now, did they stop when they faced those obstacles? Talk to enough of them and you'll find out, no, they didn't. I asked a question to someone who is in their late 80s, and I said, how did you deal with setbacks along your journey to become a lawyer? Because he grew up poor. And he said, well, you just got up and kept going. You didn't think much about it. You might have had to strategize to not repeat the same mistake or come up with something new, a new approach, but you never really thought about it too much. Maybe you were disappointed, you picked yourself up, dusted yourself off, and continued forward. Now, that's something I struggle with because it's hard for me to face rejection. It's something I've had to train myself to do. It's not something that comes as native to me and to a lot of others who are around the same age as me or maybe a little older. So what we need to do is we need to learn something. We need to be open to learning something from them. And we need to realize that there's a lot to be respected about that generation. And while they're still around, we need to do the best we can to learn how to foster the same type of mindset that they had. Because a lot of the reason why we are unhappy today in millennial generation and Gen Z generations is because we've become pretty soft. That's not fun to admit, especially when you're one of those people. It's not fun to admit that you've become soft. But it's the first step that you need to realize in making that change, just like anything, is, wow, you know what? I'm actually pretty emotionally soft. And I can learn something from people who were emotionally stronger than myself, and not because of toxic stoicism, but because they genuinely viewed setbacks as setbacks and nothing more. And it didn't stop them in their tracks. In fact, it motivated them to come up with ways to get through the bumps in the road. So my challenge to you today is to, before you brush off that person who's older and dismiss them for being a okay boomer or whatever memes that we've assigned to these poor people, which a lot of them are funny, mind you, we need to be going into conversations with them, wanting to learn something and wanting to pay attention to something and checking our own egos at the door. Because with the way that this is continuing to go, the future generations are going to continue to get softer and softer. And what we're going to see is we're going to see people who shy away from opportunities more. And I predict, it doesn't take an expert or a genius to predict this, that mental health is going to continue to go downhill. So again, let's learn something from those before us and make sure to implement it to become stronger ourselves. I hope that this video provided you some value today. If it did, please like, comment, and subscribe. And we'll see you in the next video. Thanks again, and bye for now.